If you want to support the show, you can go to mwpnews.com/support, where you can pick up my latest book, Succession Planning, and all my other books that have previously been released on Kindle for only $2.99 each. Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the Backlog Files. I am Adam. We're here today to talk about Pokemon FireRed and Pokemon LeafGreen. The first time we remade an existing game. Now, we had revisited Kanto back in Pokemon Red and Pokemon Gold and Silver. We went back to the same region, took a look around, saw what was there, and then we're like, all right, cool. Gen 3, we saw a complete ground-up remake of Red and Blue. This was 10 years later, or close to 10 years later. I think 8 years later. Because it was 96, so it would have been like 04, 05, 8, 9 years later. We go back in and we take a look around and we see, how things have changed. There are a few things here that are cool. This game really kicked the flare up for it being like, look at how much better we are now than we were then. Like the animations when you're using items on Pokemon. This is the first game where we got actual canon designs for a lot of the items that were used fairly commonly, like the potion, like the paralyzed heal, and all that kind of stuff. We got our first time we were able to see what these things actually look like, which was kind of cool. There was the what's it called? The the fuck the arrival of like the Teachy TV. I think might be a cool idea. The recap was really helpful. I love that, especially now if you go back and play after a while, it told you what the last things you did were to kind of refresh you. And it was the kind of thing where when this originated in this game, I was like, holy crap, I wish this was in every game. The There were some things that I thought were a little weird, where it's like, this is a ground-up remake of Red and Blue, with some added stuff. Like, the Sevi Islands were cool, but the issue was, especially, and I think exclusively, yeah, because there was the only thing that there were a few baby Pokemon in, in Ruby and Sapphire, but in Gen 2, some Pokemon got new evolutions. Hitmontop, for starters, um, Crobat, like, these are Pokemon that were, in the game and were evolutions of existing Pokemon that already existed. The issue was they weren't available in Red and Blue. So until you get the National Dex, you could not evolve these Pokemon. And this is kind of one of those things where it's like, why wouldn't you just put this in in the game from the beginning? Because it creates these weird situations. Like, if you try to evolve a Golbat into a Crobat before you get to, you know, before you get the National Dex, it just won't let you do it. If you try to evolve a Clefairy into not Clefairy, a Chansey into a Blissey, you just can't do it. And he's like, well, sucks to suck. The Sevi Islands were kind of cool. The idea that you could go to these islands and catch Pokemon that were, and that's the thing too, is that a lot of this, like, yeah, this came from wanting to sell you the same game again, which is something that, like, at this time we had happened a few times on the Game Boy Advance. Like, Super Mario Advance 3 is Super Mario Brothers 3. Or Super Mario Advance 4, I think it was that. And this was just upscaling the graphics, making it look as good as possible, and then repackaging it in a way that was like, oh shit, alright, that's an improvement. And that's kind of where this occupies. It's that same space. The difference is, because of hardware limitations between the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance, there was no way to move Pokemon that were in Gen 1 and Gen 2 into Gen 3, unless they were natively built into Ruby and Sapphire. Which is one of those things where it's like, we talk about, people now getting pissy about, oh, they don't have, what's it called? Like, they don't have all the Pokemon in the game. They can't, like, why can't they put all the Pokemon in the game? And it's like, that's a valid question. It is a valid question. Why can't you put all the Pokemon in the game? That said, if you get Pokemon Ruby right now, if you go to the store and buy Pokemon Ruby right now, it has in the source code all 386 Pokemon up until that point. From Bulbasaur to Deoxys are all in the game. The only reason they're not all accessible out of the gate from Ruby and Sapphire is because they want to be able to sell you more games. And that's where, if you wanted to, in Gen 3, complete the national dex by yourself, and I'm saying by yourself, not including any, any assistance from having a friend, you would need to get both Ruby and Sapphire. You would need to get Emerald, because there are some Pokemon from the national dex that are in Emerald. You would need to get both FireRed and LeafGreen. You would need to get Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD. And to say this is a new thing that the Pokemon Company is doing, to say this is a new thing where it's like, oh, you got to buy all these games and, some of them are taken away. It's like, well, yeah, but that's always been the case. That's been, as long as Pokemon's been a thing, that's been the case. Like, you couldn't even get every Pokemon in Gold and Silver. Like, there were still Pokemon that were locked away from Gold and Silver. So, I don't know. It is what it is. Anyway, the idea of how you unlock the trading into Golden Ruby and Sapphire is pretty cool. I like the way that they handle it in this game. And then getting to explore the Sevi Islands also gives you a place to go and look around and do something cool and different that isn't just look at this stuff that we have here and and like there could be more stuff in the future maybe, or it's like you walk around and you're like, okay, well, I've already done all this, let me just beat the Elite Four over and over again, or do the Battle Tower over and over again. No, this is like legitimate post-game content, post-game story content too, as you explore these other islands and see what else is going on. What else have we got? Yeah, I think this is a solid game. I think that, all of that said, there are a few things that I'm not 100% thrilled about with this. Like I said, the TTTV. The cutscenes that are like designed to show off what the game can do, they're cool, but they do take up a lot of, time where it's like, all right, I have to watch all of this shit every time we want to heal a Pokemon. We still have issues where it's like, especially coming from Ruby and Sapphire, which had very few gates, this goes back to, for fidelity, having all the gates of Red and Blue. And at that point, I'm kind of like, well, why not make this improvement? Like, why not make this improvement instead of it being this, this thing? And I understand why, is that it's like each environment looks so different that, putting them without the gates makes it a little bit harder. But with everything looking the way it does, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And it's rough. Like, let's be honest. There are some rough moments in this, and it comes from the fact that it's just, the game is still kind of shallow. Like, yeah, adding the Sevi Islands in is cool, but a lot of it is just, especially coming off of playing Red and Blue fairly recently, like if you're going through now and playing them, you are missing a lot. Yeah, not missing a lot, but it feels, coming off of Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald, and then even like Gold and Silver, this game feels a little light on content. Um, is it the worst game? Absolutely not. Is it the best game? I would say far from it. So let's see where we would rank this in our existing rankings. Let's just go over here real quick. That's not the right document, because the document never saves right. FireRed and LeafGreen. So right now our rankings are number 13, Hey You Pikachu, number 12, Pokemon Pinball, number 11, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, Pokemon Puzzle League, number 10, Pokemon Trading Card Game, number 9, Pokemon Red and Blue, number 8, Stadium, number 7, Stadium 2, number 6, Snap, number 5, Yellow, number 4, Gold, number 3, Crystal, number 2, Ruby, number 1, Emerald. I think this can go just below Ruby at the new number 3. Ruby and Sapphire at the new number 3. Because here's the thing. It's still a better experience with the updated graphics and with the new stuff than what's it called, than, Crystal is. It still is kind of the initial benchmark for what we look for in a remake from here on out, but it's not egregiously, lacking content. But we'll wrap up there for today. Our next episode will be about Pokemon Coliseum. So until then, have a great rest of your week.